Don't ask her where everyone's at. I don't know.
You know?
Say again.
That's a good way to do the Kings.
Feel so inadequate trying to teach that. Like, it's a lot of information.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, open up. Here's the fire hydrant.
Hey, she was doing good with those questions this morning. You got it all.
She's a cheater, is what she is.
Yeah.
Pastor, I brought my TFM attire today.
No, you're still in jeans.
That's just normal. That's just high
That
class.
is
That's
not
high
a Sunday
class.
morning attire.
What?
Guys look like a mess. Thank you, Noah.
So
Good
you-
job.
Yeah, he only played because of the shoe. He only played quarterback because of the shoe.
Smart.
Thank you. His shoes getting into the
Wait,
Or the
What's
sole's
your
getting into the
pants?
body.
I was playing with the junior church kids today in church, and I broke this kid's ankle. But I was in a mud puddle.
You look terrible.
Who ripped up your suit coats? Somebody ripped my suit coats? It got holes in it.
Are you serious?
Dadgummit. That's right.
On a scale of 1 to awful, you're
You look
I was
like
having
a-
fellowship with the brothers, okay?
You look like a
Matthew. Matthew.
I thought you were gonna get-
You're not.
It's the second and over.
You're not letting me in the third row.
Is this, are you studying me?
Yeah. It's because you're white.
I hate 2024. I wish you could go back to 1800s. Like before
No, you wouldn't.
1865.
No, you wouldn't.
What? About $2.
Where's Lydia? Stop. Where's Olivia
Are
at?
we live streaming? Oh crap, are we live streaming?
We are live streaming, yes.
Why didn't you tell me that?
Hey guys.
She's not here yet. I don't know why.
We're normally like the last ones to get here.
You are.
The last shall be first, am I right?
Rogan and Peyton?
Rogan.
Payne's here.
I haven't seen him.
He was there yesterday.
Yeah, but I think.
Rogan was there yesterday?
Yes.
Did you guys yell at him?
We did. We
Yes.
actually did.
We did.
What was his response?
He said I was sick.
Sick.
He said he was sick and
Was he sick this morning after being at the activity
Exactly.
tonight?
Exactly.
Last night?
Yeah, he's ghosted me about 20 times.
He said he responded to you.
He did not respond.
He was like, I responded to him a couple of times.
No, he didn't. He's lying.
He'd,
So Olivia, Peyton, and then so Rogan's probably not coming.
Loser.
How
It was such a broken thing on
Junior
show.
Yeah, came to
Oh, I
see
know.
me last night, but not Sunday morning.
You'd show up too much.
And then Emily is back in here?
That
She should be.
She's
here.
still at home.
I think she did.
Why is she not doing good?
No, she's pretty sick. We all are.
Not an excuse.
Oh, time, Olivia!
Dripping like.
Good night!
Oh,
sweat.
And she was. You are so late.
I was sleeping.
You are.
Is Emily here?
Oh no, this is
Yeah.
I watched.
Oh,
it.
okay.
I can't believe how late you guys are. See this?
Check.
Literally
Check.
so late.
I'm like on time.
5 minutes early is on time. On time 5 minutes late. I just feel like that's what
Good job, Peyton. No, don't even think about it. Good job.
What did I do?
You looked at the third row. I saw it.
I was looking at it. I was going.
You're like, man, that was so
Somebody
nice.
tracked
You
this
was back here, so
I
I
got
don't pay attention.
hairs are everywhere.
Oh, you're so great.
5 seconds.
Alright, so I do have quite a bit of homework today, so I'll bring it down at the end of class and hand it out. So I corporate tutor or whatnot, I'll hand you back a lot of homework. Weekly check sheets. Does anybody have any information training?
Just count on us the last day.
What?
You can count on us to bring it the last day.
The last day was
That today.
3 weeks ago.
Wait, actually.
Supposed to sign off.
But you didn't give them us the check.
I know.
Yes,
I
you
know.
did.
So that's why I haven't been intense about it.
Okay.
Do you have it now? So, what was that, Matthew?
I have it.
My dad
It's
was
in my book.
Is
Oh,
there
I
anything
have
on
it,
it?
but none of it's
Well,
spelled out.
yeah, exactly. See, I have it.
So
I
we-
brought mine.
I have
So-
it too.
I brought mine.
Please fill it out and give it to me.
Here's my.
So you
I
guys
can
don't.
spell it out right now.
Oh yeah, Matthew or Isaac said I accidentally forgot to put the upload.
Yeah, you
Thanks.
just do.
And,
Sorry about this.
and that's why I didn't have it.
You're such a
that's
liar.
liar. I literally googled how to fix it.
My dad, he just submitted it on another.
Yeah, it works. I got the bigger one. Maybe I don't want to turn it in, so I figured something was going
Because it was broken.
Yeah.
Is why.
on. You don't even know what she's talking about.
There's the homework this week, right?
What about it?
That you couldn't
Upload
submit it. Like,
Why not?
Because of the problem last time.
What was the problem last time?
Wait, you couldn't upload it. You couldn't upload.
Yeah.
Why can't it upload?
There's no upload.
So forward. All right. So this afternoon we have missionary Greg Rock with us. Do you prefer Greg or Gregory? Greg. Greg. Greg Rock. So remember John Bach from like 7 years ago, and that's pretty much Greg from what I found out at lunch today. So I called John on the way back to the church actually. I was like, hey, I just had lunch with you like from 7 years ago. Yeah, he favors me quite a bit. So he is missionary going to Mongolia. He's actually presenting at our church tonight, but we asked him to speak for TFM. He has open floor, so it will not be, I'm assuming, probably not on the doctrines of God. And so he's got open floor to speak on whatever he likes. So get pen and paper out, take some notes. Move on. Class is yours.
Nice.
Everybody's asking.
Is there homework?
There will be a 30-question test based on the information that he gives out. So make sure you pay
Is that a Quizlet?
I don't know if that'll really work.
Wait, is it from ChatGPT?
No, it's simply on what he
That one
puts
might
out.
not work.
I have.
Well, this is live stream. So is that an issue?
No.
Okay.
Elliot did.
I thought about different ways of doing this. Said y'all usually have a break in the center. I'm gonna probably do two different things, one before and one after. I think that's what we'll have us do. I want to give you my testimony a bit, and then we'll do more kind of sermon later. Just kind of get into the story of Mary, because I really enjoyed studying her life in the Bible, because there's some very unique things about her life that you don't find with anybody else in the Bible. And I want to find out why. Why does the Lord favor her? Why does the Lord say that wherever the gospel is preached, her testimony is going to be given? That's powerful. Because our testimony is really, obviously it's our story, but it's everything about us. And so for the Lord to take her testimony and use it everywhere the gospel is preached, I want to find out why. And do a little bit of study on that. But first, as he said, my name is Greg Bach. I grew up in Alaska. Anybody been to Alaska? No? You should go. Alaska's pretty neat. I went there when I was 7 years old, and I grew up there from the time I was 7 till I just left a couple months ago, and really enjoyed it. But really where to start with my testimony, I was born in Pennsylvania. We can start there. My dad was a pastor, and we went through, after Dad resigned the church there, we went into travel. We just traveled and sang and preached and all over the country. Been in 49 states. So that was kind of cool. I need to hit Nevada. That'll be last. I went to Hawaii when I was going to Mongolia. Hawaii, Illinois. Does that count, being in the airport? Yeah. Alright, then I've been there. So, well, I did spend like 6 hours there. And I did leave the airport briefly. 2 seconds.
Did you see the water though?
Yeah.
It counts.
It counts.
It's just
It's like a
I flew over a lot of places. Airspace.
How long were you over them?
10 minutes maybe. I could look down and see clouds. No, I have been given the opportunity to travel quite a bit, and it's been a lot of fun. Has anybody here traveled much outside? Where at?
We used to be in a gospel group and travel over the East Coast.
Cool.
Pretty much it.
Cool. How far down? Never went to Tennessee.
No, we went to Florida.
Florida.
Did we go to Florida?
Yeah.
We went to Florida.
Doesn't count if you don't remember it.
Yeah, definitely Banjo.
Oh, cool. Cool. That's fun. We did that a lot. Do you remember my family, anybody? We had like a lot of kids, like 15 of them. Yeah. I grew up in a family of 15 kids. They came through, they sang at the church here and stuff.
I don't go to this church. So
Oh, okay. Okay.
I go to their church.
Okay, is that how it is?
And Hope
As
Baptist.
soon as he leaves, that's what you say?
Oh, he's gone.
But yeah, our church is better.
Okay, what church is it?
Hope Baptist Rivals.
Okay. Not heard of it.
It's one of our many campuses.
It's gotta be better if I haven't heard of it. No, we did that as a family. We sang a lot, and so there's 12 of us, and we all play different instruments.
What instrument do you play?
Guitar and piano.
What kind of a style of
Guitar and piano.
music? Yeah, like bluegrass or like.
No, just I did mostly hymns. I wasn't like excellent, so had fun. We had fun playing together, and then after that, I went out with my 3 younger brothers, and I did that for 3 years when we sang in different churches, preached. That was fun. But traveling around, you get a lot of experience, you see a lot of places. What's your favorite place you've been to?
Probably New York, Tennessee, like Times Square.
Kentucky.
Times Square or Tennessee?
I don't know. There's a lot.
What in Tennessee? City?
Yeah.
Country? Because there's.
Kentucky. They are, but it's like I don't know.
So you like either country or city? You're not sure.
Well, I was in 4th of July in New York, so we had some part of
that's
city,
it.
so
Yeah,
that was
that's cool.
that was like the best memory basically.
I think my favorite place is probably Oregon.
Never been there.
It's awesome. The coast of Oregon. Like the coast, on this side is all, smooth beaches and stuff. Over there it's rugged rocks.
Oh really?
And so I went out there, this was probably in December, and there was like hundreds of seals all along the rocks, and the waves would hit it and splash like 50 feet high. It's crazy cool. And the redwoods and all that, that's cool. I like mountains. I'm a country guy. I grew up in a town of 60 people. So, yeah, it's kind of small.
Nice.
And my family was a quarter acre.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, when we leave the town, they go into recession. They don't know what to do with that. But no, I've enjoyed it. I had a really good growing up experience. But now I'm going to Mongolia, so that's going to be even different, a lot more different. So, actually, apparently 2 people from this class went to Mongolia. Not that are here, but they're graduating now. Cool. Anybody else want to go? Mongolia? It's pretty cool. It's a very neat country, it really is. My video presentation I'm going to be showing tonight, but since you go to a better church, you won't see it. And you can pull it up if you want on YouTube. Anyway, I was born when I was a pastor. We traveled after that, and then we moved to Alaska when I was 7. And that was really cool. I grew up looking out the window looking at bears. You see that usually about every day. And but the reason we went up there, obviously we were missionaries, so we worked with native people. That was an experience. Native people are very hard, and that's something that I'm thankful for, because now whenever I go out witnessing, I kind of understand. Now some people groups are harder to reach, and it's just that's the way it is. Some people are harder to talk to, but growing up, going to places that are not easy to go to makes everywhere else kind of really easy. And when you grow up talking to people like that, you can talk to a vast variety of people. It's a lot easier. But I'm thankful for how I was raised. I've got really good parents. They taught us well. But I didn't get saved until I was 20. And most of my family, saved at 9 or 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. But I thought I was saved. But I went that whole time. I was called to preach. I was going to be a missionary. I was on my way, but I wasn't saved. And so I got saved at 20. And actually, it was the same day that I got saved. I knew God was calling me to be a missionary, or at least in full-time service of some sort. And that confused me, because usually, you get saved, and then you grow. You don't usually get saved. So I struggled with it. I didn't know if that was really what God was calling me to do. Well, the next night I went to church, and the pastor, it was in Salt Lake City, Utah. It was not Mormon, it was Baptist. But he came to me and he told me that when God saved him, God called him to preach the same thing. So the Lord used that in my life. And so ever since then, And seeing how the Lord used that in my life, and obviously now being a missionary in Mongolia, He used it in a big way. Now I just think about, especially older people, right? They have a lot of experience, a lot of wisdom, and that's something I think we as young people don't value as much as we should. Often it's easy to have fun with people our own age, and that's great. But when Lord, over and over in my life, Lord used people with a lot more years, a lot more wisdom. Just say something small, and really affect my life. So I try to be sensitive to that, because the Lord can speak to us through anybody really, but someone that's had a lot of experience can be very valuable to us. But he told me that, so I surrendered to preach and surrendered to do whatever God wanted. And so several months later, I saw a video about the country of Mongolia, and I had a burden. I thought, maybe this is, maybe it's not. I don't know. So I started praying, and that went on for several months. And God began to show me some things that pointed me in that direction. One day, I was struggling with it. I didn't know what God wanted me to do, and we're going to talk a little bit once we start. We're going to talk a little bit about the call of God, just kind of my thoughts on it. But it took several months for me to realize that's what He wanted me to do. And but I prayed one day. I said, Lord, if this is what You want me to do, if You want me to do it, please show me something today. I was just tired of not knowing, so I wanted to know. I said, Lord, just show me something today. And later that day, I was riding in a van going from the hotel to the airport, and this lady I'd never met before. She was lost. She wasn't a Christian or anything. She turned around and asked me if I was a missionary, and I said no, and because I wasn't sure, so I wasn't telling anybody at that point. But I still thought about it. Maybe the Lord's trying to use this lady to point me in that direction. And then later I was at the airport, and somebody else asked me the same thing, someone I'd never met before. And so that day I realized that I just needed to surrender to it. I knew that's what happened. So ever since then, I've been preparing to go. I went last year. I was there for 3 weeks, the last 3 weeks of April, which was the worst time to go, because it's still very cold. I went there, and you go to the very north part of the country, there's a lake there. Actually, that lake has 3% of the world's freshwater. It's huge. It's very deep. And at the right time of year, you can stand on the lake and look. It's frozen all the way to the bottom. You can see. But anyway, we went there, and the first thing I remember seeing when we got to that town, these horses running across the lake. Soon after that, car was driving across the lake. So it's not a very good year to go. If you're going to go in July, August, it's pretty nice. And then you actually see grass. It's not all brown and white. But I enjoyed the trip there, I did. But growing up in Alaska, I got a job when I was 19, I think. And as you can imagine, jobs are not very common in a town that size. But I got a job at the dump. So I was the manager of the dump. I should put that on. I did that for 3 years. That was fun. It wasn't just a dump, it was a landfill. It was a whole big thing. And the funnest part of it was chasing the bears away. Because I had to do that a lot. That was fun. I shot lots of bears. With rubber slugs. And shot them with pepper spray and chased them with the car. Part of the job description was chasing the bears away.
You remember those calls?
Yeah.
So that's what made you take the job?
Yeah. So I can have close calls with bears?
Yeah.
No.
They provide the gun, you have to use your own.
Use my own. I carry a 9mm on my hip, and then I had a 12 gauge in the truck. The 9mm was not shooting bears. You don't shoot.
I was gonna say. I was gonna say.
It's noise. You want noise. So if you can make loud noise, it often scares them away. So that's what the 9mm is for, just to give me enough time to get the shot in. Because the only gun I've ever seen stop a bear in his tracks is 12 gauge. Lead slug.
Yeah, don't dare say that. Really thick smalls.
Yeah, I think for some bullets won't even miss it for. There was just one time I went down there. Well, the reason they're so dangerous down there is that's the food source. They eat garbage. So I'm taking the food source. But I went down there and there was a grizzly, and he was not very happy. That grizzly charged me probably 4 times, and growled at me I don't know how many times. He didn't like me. I didn't like him. I have a video of him getting in the incinerator. It's a steel container, and he ripped right into it. Ripped the door off. Very strong.
So did he like incinerated or something?
No, he got blasted. See, when he was bugging me, nobody cared, but then he went to a grocery store and ate a red velvet cake like this big, huge, and then they killed the teeth. It's like, when he charges me, you don't kill it, but he eats a cake and you kill it. Makes me feel, yeah, it makes me feel really nice.
Wait, he killed the team?
Huh?
Is that what you said?
No.
Okay.
It ate cake.
Okay,
But there was this one time I went down there, and I could tell, like, if he was in a bad mood. If he was in a good mood, I was like, hey, how you doing? No, but I could tell, like, you could tell by their face if they're mad. And I could tell he was mad about something. And so I got out of the truck, even though he was, like, from me to the back of the room away. I got out, and I was just doing my job, whatever. And I seen him turn at me and start charging. And he was quite mad that time. Probably my closest call was this one. And so I was about 10 feet from the truck. And I was trying to decide whether to reach for the gun or jump in the truck. I decided to jump in the truck. I jumped in the truck, slammed the door, and he just plowed me inside the truck. Like, he was mad.
so yours is like an on-off relationship.
Yeah, it's like sometimes it was his fault.
Okay, okay.
Everyone's like, I didn't do anything to him. I just shot him a few times.
So what'd you do after he rammed your truck? What'd you do?
I started the truck and rammed it back at him.
Really?
Yeah, that's what you do to get a grizzly away. You run at him in a truck. Because they know they can't win the truck.
Let's go to Elastic.
So that was probably my closest call. Another time I was down there, I can't remember what I was doing. I had a bucket of water. I was dashing it into a bush, and he was in the bush. I didn't know it. And so he came out of there, and they're huge. If a grizzly stood in here, his head would, some of them, his head would touch the ceiling. Like they're huge bears. This one was probably 800 pounds. So it's a big bear. And anyway, I found out, every time I went to work, I'd see him just about every time I went to work, and he'd run into the bushes. Well, I thought he was leaving, because the truck was there. He doesn't like horns. I'd blow the horn whenever I go. Well, I found out he wasn't leaving. He was staying in the bush, watching me work until I leave. Because I started noticing every time I left, I look in the rearview mirror, and he's coming out of the same bush. That's kind of not a cool feeling, knowing the grizzly's watching you for 3 hours every morning. It's kind of creepy. But anyway, that's how I found out he was staying in the bush. I dashed water in the bush, and he came out of there. He was pretty mad. But I'd forgotten about that. And when you're working up there, you're so used to bears, you're not thinking about bears. I probably should be more scared of bears. So I just don't even think about it. I'm just working, and I tossed something in the bush, and right when I was tossing it, I remembered he stays in the bush. And but he wasn't in the bush that time. I looked up, and the bush is probably this tall or so, pretty thick bush. I was standing there, and I looked up, and he's standing over the bush like this, looking at me. It's like, good thing he was in a good mood that day. You could tell in his eyes he was happy.
You didn't pull your gun out or do anything?
No, at that point, you just back away. Like, I've walked outside and seen a bear on our porch. Like, that's all the time. One time I went into the top. We have a shed. It's two levels. Went in the top, and I looked out the window, and we had huge windows. The window's probably 4 feet by 4 feet, and about the sill's about right there. I looked out, and he had pushed the window in and was sitting on the windowsill. That line. Like a 400-pound bear sitting on the windowsill. So you see stuff like that all the time. The black bears, they come in town more. I kind of treat them like rats. They're nuisances. Not so dangerous. Just stomp them. They don't like that. No, but we had one in the car, a little Toyota Corolla, someone left the back seat open and we'd been fishing and he liked the smell. So he jumped in, he got in the back seat, climbed into the front seat, beat the horn and scared himself. 4 in the morning we heard the horn go off and Dad went out there and saw the bear running. So you see stuff like that all the time. It's pretty fun. One time Dad went fishing. See, don't mess with the grizzly bear. Black bears, like, they're dangerous, but you can handle them most of the time until you can't. And then it's like, well, he couldn't handle it, but I can. No, Dad went fishing, and there was a grizzly in Dad's fishing spot. Well, you don't know my dad, but he's kind of particular about his fishing spot. And how the bears fish up there, they just sit in the middle of the water, and it's like a deer on them, and they'll just sit in the middle eating the fish, and when he's done, go back down and get another. So he was doing that, and Dad's like, I'm not going to let him steal my fishing spot. So Dad ran down there about 15 feet from him and growled at him. It's just the wrong thing to do to a bear. They growled at him like really loud as Dad could. And that bear jumped up and didn't run like he was supposed to. Like, that's what happened to Dad's mind. Growl, he runs. No. He growled, he stood back up and growled back at Dad. And when a grizzly bear growls, you never forget it. You feel it. You don't just hear it, you feel it. It's like, have you ever heard like a big animal roar and been close to it? Don't forget it. But
How many siblings do you have left?
well, hopefully all of them. No, the ones at home. You're saying?
No, just like how many in total?
How many haven't died?
Yeah.
Oh, from bears?
Survivors.
Yeah.
There's 15 of us.
Oh, cool.
That's
impressive. Like, you just have to know how to deal with it. I wouldn't recommend you go growl at a bear. Like, you probably wouldn't turn out very good. They can tell if you're from Alaska. That's what it is. If you're from Alaska, there's like this bro code they follow.
Yeah.
And it's like, we respect each other.
Okay, I see.
But there's you guys, no. We have 2 guys eating. One of them, it was his own fault. He fell asleep drunk on the bear trail. Yeah. The other guy slept in the food with his, slept in the tent with his food. So that was awesome.
So you protect us in Alaska. You go downtown Detroit, we'll protect you. We got you.
I don't know.
We don't go to Alaska. Yeah.
Yeah. But besides all that, Alaska's really cool. I like it. We're 20 miles from the largest glacier you can drive to in North America. We get tons of tourists, like a lot of tourists through there. Obviously, you two are brothers, right? Sorry.
Across hemisphere.
You met my brother, right? Did he teach for the class or something?
Which one?
Jonathan?
I don't know if he's ever taught this class.
Okay. Sorry.
No, I don't think he's from here.
That's the one I said sorry about.
You warned me about you.
Did he? No surprise. Anyway, yeah. Enough about bears. Is it enough about bears?
No.
Yeah, I have a coon hat like Danny Boone. Talk about bears.
That's Kentucky.
I told you.
We would do it out of bears, except the tails of bears aren't sometimes.
It's a little pom-pom.
Look like a granny bun. No, but I mean, for the most part, the grizzlies stay out of town. I only dealt with the grizzlies more because I worked in the dump on this side. There was one time I ran at it with a bulldozer.
That's really sweet.
Except that the bulldozer's really slow. It's like, the bear's already halfway to China, and I'm going to get you. It's like, it takes forever. But no, it was fun. I enjoyed that job. Did it for 3 years.
Have you ever chased a bear and shooted it when you're driving?
No, I'm not shot when I was driving. But that job, we ate that one. That was good.
Really?
Oh yeah. Some of the best meat I've ever had. Very tender steaks. You know, the back strap was awesome. Ribs were good.
Wow.
Good sausage.
How much meat did you eat?
About a bear's worth.
How much
I don't know. I never weighed it. It was quite a bit. It was a decent sized bear.
Are the deer bigger out there?
It depends if you're talking real or fake deer, because we don't have deer.
Oh,
We don't have, in our town, we don't have deer. 60 miles away, there's deer, and they're small, very small. They're called stick and black-tail deer, and they're known for being very small. But there's like tons of them. So one shot you get three. Then it's worth it. No, the moose are huge, but we don't have moose in our town either. And our town is weird because we're in a tight valley, and it's like we get a lot of snow, and we have a lot of wolves, and so moose don't like it. Because I can't run fast, and the wolves get.
You refer to multiple mooses
As meese? No. I think you should. Because goose
Do you
geese.
say mooses?
No. It's like I got 3 moose. Because it never made sense to me either, because it's like I got a goose or I got 3 geese. I got a moose, I got 3 meese.
So you treat moose as like fish or deer fish. That's
Like I don't catch them with a pole.
No, I'm saying like I don't say fishes, you say fish.
Yeah, you would treat it the same. Yeah. The fish was pretty cool too. Got a lot of fish. The biggest one I caught was something like 43 inches. And it's not just long, it's like that bigger. They're huge. So they're called dog tail.
good.
Yeah, you don't want to be dead. They hurt. But yeah, we had fun. Growing up with a big family there was like a lot of fun. Your friend wasn't, 2 doors down, he was 2 bedrooms down. Because there was no other kids in town. Yeah, actually, I'm like, right? Jonathan's wife. She's from this church. She was not used to guns apparently, so we were showing her the house. And my bedroom is like the gun room because we keep it away from the kids and stuff. So she didn't know what to think when she walked in. There's like 20 guns hanging around. She didn't like it. She told John, she's like, you didn't tell me they had guns. It's like, what do you expect? You're in Alaska. But no, it was a good experience. And I think in a lot of ways, growing up in Alaska prepared me for being a missionary in Mongolia. Because there's a lot of similarities. So, yeah, actually John shot at the wolf one time. With bird shot. And it was coming at him. We killed it. You don't know what a wolf is?
No.
You're saying bird shot.
Yeah.
Oh.
Say wolf first, no?
WOLF.
It says wolf. You can't say wolf.
I
don't know what y'all are talking about.
You don't know what
You don't know bird shot? It's basically it's a 12-gauge cartridge, and instead of like buckshot or a slug is like just solid lead in there.
Oh.
It's just a bunch of beans.
Okay.
And so when he shot it 5 times with that, so when he got it back, he was like holes in his face.
Never did that nice.
He peppered it. He sold that thing for like $600.
For how many holes he had?
Every hole in that dog. After he was done with it, he took it to the gun range and just shot it. No, but it did prepare me for mission work, I think. Which Mongolia is colder. It's just like, you know how you get used to something, you go halfway and then it's kind of like Alaska. So, well, is anyone here, like, do you kind of have an idea of what you want to do, or just kind of praying, or don't know? That's helpful. All I got was, I asked the question, it's like, no, that's good. The main thing is just being open to whatever it is. Because I know for me, it was a struggle. It's like, I want to serve the Lord, that was no doubt. I want to serve the Lord, but there's conditions. And I found out in a lot of ways, when we put conditions on the Lord, that's where He's going to put us. So, like what my dad would tell you if he was here, he said we were actually going through a little community. It's called Kilman. You should hear some of the names. Let's see if I can remember. They're native names, obviously, of communities. Laxgotsa. That's it. Gitwing silk. That's another one. Anyway, this one was Kittleman. And we were going through there, and Dad didn't like being there very much because the people were very hard up there. And so he told Mom, he said, I'm glad the Lord can call me here. And Mom said, I wouldn't say that. And he said, Lord would never call me here. And we worked in that town for about 5 years as missionaries. So when we put terms on our willingness to serve, often that's where God will put us. But that's the main thing, just being open. But that's really my testimony. Not everybody grew up in Alaska, obviously. But I'm very thankful I did. It was good. I guess, how long do y'all usually go? Cool.
Oh, yeah, they-
4:15 because
Alright, so it's 2:30. We got time. So, here, I'll show you. Gotta find it. There you go. This is in Mongolia. It's a kid in the Kazakh tribe. And they use eagles to hunt. So they'll actually use the eagles to hunt wolf. Which is really cool. They'll take them, they'll cover the eyes of the eagle. I don't know if I have a picture. But they'll cover the eyes of the eagle with some leather. And then they'll take it on horseback to the top of the mountain, take the hood off. And then obviously eagles have really good eyes, so they look for something to get. And then when they see something, they just take off. And then they go get it. So they don't use track to see that. But that, actually what I was going to say was, the people where we work in Alaska and Canada, which we work in Canada too, they're ethnically Mongolian. So they look like this. So that's another way I think we're doing it from growing up there. They're basically Mongolian that have left Mongolia. But yeah, we work in Canada too, forgot to mention. We live right on the border. Are you familiar with what Alaska looks like, listener? See what Alaska You have no idea what Alaska's like then. So Alaska, yeah, it looks like this, right? We live way down here, right beside British Columbia, Canada. So actually, once you go, you can drive to my town from here, which is probably 3,500 miles or so to my town, which I did drive. I've driven that. You're looking at probably 40. I drove from Oregon to Missouri. Including, that day I blew a tire too. That was 1,009 miles. I'm not active enough. So I did that in a day. That was a couple months ago. But here coming up, after I leave here, I've been doing way too much driving. I just came here from South Carolina. But right after I leave here, I'm going back to Tennessee, and after that, I'm going straight back to Oregon. And then back to Alaska.
Go down to Alaska.
You can. That's 20 hours. That's kind of long. That's, yeah, you can. But you're up far. Actually, that's all.
Really?
Yeah.
Coffee there? Caffeine pills? Are you okay?
See, that's the thing. It's like I'm okay without it. What do you do?
Mountain Dew?
I honestly, I don't drink caffeine. I don't. Never.
It's weird. It's mad.
Is it?
Yeah.
That's what people have said.
I've worked 16-hour shifts in the hospital.
I've worked 16-hour shifts with them. It was nice. Like I didn't have to. Thing is, if you never get on it, you don't need it. It's like I wake up with a start. I'm like ready to go. When I'm on a schedule. When I'm on a schedule, it's hard. But like back home, I'm on a schedule. I go to bed at 10, up at 5 every day. 7 hours. But when I do that, I feel way more healthy, way more energetic. Way we definitely.
You just get up and go. You don't even have a conversation. As soon
I
as you get
honestly, I'll set my alarm for 5 in the morning, and I'll wake up at 4:59, almost consistently. And then I'm up in time to shut my alarm off before it wakes everybody else up. Yes, it's actually nice. Just get up.
it takes me like an hour.
We'll get off caffeine right now.
On campus.
So yeah, we work in Canada. Canada's really hard to work in because it's not a very big country. I mean, it's beautiful, very great country as far as if you want to go visit, but to be a missionary there, they started reading through our literature, checking for hate speech.
Oh, and men have both said that now.
In front of. I said that too.
Yeah, it's not the people, which they are. I was telling someone a minute ago, he's destroying whatever.
Yeah.
But they are, like, I was talking to someone who came, she comes to our church like that in Canada, and she was like complaining because the government didn't cover 100% of the disabilities. Yeah, and that's like a right of humans apparently for the government to pay for stuff. And that's where they've got the Canadian people. They've got them to the point where that's expected. And they're getting worse quickly.
I had a Canadian at work, and she was Canadian. She was like, "You ever gonna go to Canada?" I was like, "No." I was like, "I enjoy freedom." She's like, "I'm Canadian." Then they banned gun removal too. You can't have you only have a hunting rifle.
Yeah, you had to turn in all your pistol first. It used to be you can have a pistol and a handgun, but it really didn't go good because you never could have it in the vehicle, you couldn't carry it, open or concealed. And also, you have to have the bullets in one side of the house locked up, and you have to have the gun on the opposite side of the house locked up. You see somebody breaking in, just wait right there, be right back.
How do you
The only way you were allowed to shoot it was like and you had to transport it along. But now you can't even have it. They outlaw airsoft.
Are you serious?
Oh, what?
Oh, that's awful.
Because they are shaped like assault weapons. That's bad mentally.
Yes.
Tell them that. They're really hard. I accidentally brought my gun in one time.
Uh-oh.
It was my 9mm. I carry around the Glock 43X. That's my go-to carry. Well, that gun's even illegal in California. Well, yes, but even in the United States, it's illegal there because it's black. It's scary. It's a scary looking gun. Any black gun is scary.
Again, isn't that the point?
So, anyway, we are talking about guns. So, anyway, I always carry it, and I always carry it back here. And so I'm just working, everyday working, having it on, and we have no grocery store, no hardware store, we don't have police, we don't have fire department, that's our town. We've got nothing. We got a post office. Yeah. The lady there's annoying. But, so I'm carrying it, and I realize I need to run to the hardware store. And so I stop, and right as I'm pulling up to a stop, I remember my gun. And it's rare they don't ask about weapons. They always ask, any weapons in the vehicle? And then if you say no, they'll still ask you, any handguns? It's like, stupid. But I pull up, and I'm just praying. Because if I'm caught with it, they could put me in prison at the border. And it's really annoying. But in the least, you will lose the gun. And that was a $600 gun. I wasn't eager to lose. So I was just hoping you wouldn't ask, and that was the only time that guy never asked me about weapons.
Both ways.
Actually, we don't have going in. We only have. Oh. Yeah, it's kind of cool. Because the only reason we don't have one coming in, we used to, but okay. Canada's here. There's the line, Alaska, and then we've got a lot of mines around us. So you drive into our town and then back out on the dirt road to the mines. That's in Canada again. But there's no border crossing anyway because it's just remote. Well, the miners didn't like the slowdown of going through the border, so they blew it up with dynamite.
That's the most American thing.
Oh, yeah. I met a guy that was part of that.
Really?
Yeah. And this was, you know, he's pretty old now, but yeah, they never rebuilt the U.S. border.
The government didn't like come in and do something.
Canadians brought a trailer back, and that was their border for a while, and for still on the trailer. And America never rebuilt. I think it's kind of cool. But I had a Canadian border officer. She told me that, well, let's face it, you don't have a U.S. border, so let's kind of, I have to kind of act both sides.
Yeah.
That's what she told me. That's the dumbest thing I ever heard.
So you have to what?
She said, you don't have an American border, so I have to kind of like act both sides. I kind of have to take up the slack there.
No.
Yeah, talk about it.
No.
She kept us at the border that day for 4.5 hours.
You tell her
Asking
she's
about where we get
Canadian?
our money, which is none of her business. Canadians are.
Yeah.
But all that to say, it's a very hard mission field. So, I mean, yeah, I don't like the government at all over there, and they're getting more communistic. But the people there, they need to learn. So that's what my dad's still doing, working in Canada. My brothers are still there. I've got one brother. He's a missionary to Alaska. He's a pilot, which some of you will probably know him. And then Jonathan, he's going to be working in Canada, about 30 minutes from that town Dad said he never would go to. That's where Jonathan worked. And then Daniel, which some of you probably also know him, he's a missionary in Sri Lanka. So it's kind of cool. Except family really needs some work in the heart. We kind of have to do it in two different times anyway, because like the house won't hold the weight. We all came back at once. Now we built our house up there. It's pretty cool. It's a nice house. It's 50 foot to the top. I lived on the 4th level. It's cool. Because the first level was just on posts, and you could drive underneath it. And then that kept you above the snow, because we get, like, if this building was in Alaska in the middle of winter, snow would be past the top of the window. So that keeps you above the snow. Bears can't get in the house. Also, we're in a flood zone. Floods can't get us, and works out good. But then anyway, it's main level, you know, living room, dining, all that, bedrooms, and then that was the 3rd level. We have 2 apartments. I got an apartment. Anybody else get
You say special, like a helmet or something?
I'm a special, not in a mental special way, just like I'm just a special person.
Okay.
So I got an apartment.
Okay, makes sense.
I shared the apartment, which was not special. Shared it with my brother, and then 2 sisters had an apartment on the other side. But that's enough goofing around. I got to try to figure out what to bring, because I don't know. So, we're going to look at. We'll take a break pretty soon. I'm not going to teach very long. You can thank me later. But we'll start out with Colossians 3. I guess, what time do you usually take a break?
So, your
About
class
now?
says it's 2 o'clock, but your class is an hour long.
Oh, that's right. It's 3:45. What time do you usually take a break? About now?
Yeah.
Why don't we take a break now, and then that'd be a good time to bring a lesson. But
We teach every Sunday.
I'm just trying to make it where you like it.
I
when
think
come
we
back.
learned black ones are pests. So they're scary.
Canada needs to go.
Canada needs the gospel, that's right.
How can you want to bring some of the gospel to the table?
Oh, I mean, Jonah did. Yeah, Jonah.
Yeah, but I don't want to be doing it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Oh.
What was your name? You?
Ben.
Ben? You?
No.
Noah? Good. Yeah, same.
Peyton. Peyton.
Oh, I thought you said Peyton. Sorry.
Oh. Yeah, he kind of is.
And you?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Olivia? Nice to meet you. Nice to meet
You know Brian Whitaker?
you. I know who he is.
Yeah, no, I'm his son.
Okay, cool.
Your brother preached at our church. We got married, so.
Wait, who?
Jonathan Bach.
Shows how much.
That was before you got married?
Yeah.
Then I'm very sorry.
That was like when he was living here. Like that was like right before.
That was 2017 then.
Yeah, that was before my dad was a pastor. I was like, close. I was like
You just
just
said
coming
that.
into the youth group.
How old
So I had like 12.
About it.
You were 14? So I was like 11.
How old are you
I
now?
was 20. I turned 20.
So you're turkey.
I know.
My brothers hate me for this, but I hold a position that 20 is old.
How old are you?
Biblically,
Really?
if you look at it,
Doesn't Jewish law say 33 or 30?
13 is
13.
when they
Bart mitzvah. What do
That's
they
at
have?
13.
13.
Yeah, but in Jewish law,
Yeah, that's
It's
when they got
13.
married at 13 too, but we're not talking about that. They weren't allowed to go to war until they were 20.
Oh.
Priests weren't allowed to be in the priesthood until they're 20. So there's
so I'm almost a man.
You're almost a man.
Yes.
My brothers hated that until they turned 20. And then they're like, yeah, tell a 19-year-old, yeah, you're How far is the church? So your dad pastors
Yeah,
the
we're
church?
about 45 minutes away.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we gotta like drive for your weekend to close the
It's not right after.
I'll let my dad know you're around.
Well, I'm right back out of here, but I'll be back in the area sometime.
For sure.
You can take my car if you want.
Yeah,
3 minutes.
It is 39 minutes to McDonald's.
No.
Oh, there's a dude in
That's Genghis Khan. You know Genghis Khan?
Who's that guy?
That's Genghis Khan. And that's Genghis Khan when he was younger. No,
One's bald and one has hair.
they are obsessed with Genghis
Do you
Khan.
not know
I know who he was.
Okay.
Isn't he like responsible for like?
The largest empire in the history of the
Well, yeah,
world.
that too. Isn't he like 5% of the world's population? Or something like that?
Well, no.
Well,
They say so.
rumored.
They say so because, like, the Soviets took over Soviets, like, I don't know how long ago, and they threw it off in '96. But when the Soviets took over, they destroyed all of the ancestor records. They destroyed
Oh, really?
Yes, and so now, when they got the control back, they said, tell us what clan you're from, and all of them said yes.
Oh.
So now you have, like,
Did you ever watch like James Bond and Goldeneye from like the 90s, but before everything was like thrown off and like the Soviet was still You ever played like, do you ever have like Nintendo 64?
That guy, you missed really the best.
see, in Alaska, we don't
Sorry.
have that stuff. We were having about
What?
6 weeks of stuff with catch
Very
fish and shoot
difficult.
bears and run from risk.
Well, like I said, Oxford saying to come downtown Detroit and on the east side to
Mhm.
protect you. You protect us, we want.
Yeah, we'll protect you from the dangerous black guys.
Hey, anybody want a job for the summer? Pays nothing.
But what?
Well,
What is it?
I'm building a cabin.
In Alaska? Me and Matthew could do that for you.
Yeah,
You want to build
we're
an Alaska?
professional builders.
hey, does YouTube work out there? Because we can do some how to build a cabin videos.
We have to upload them.
We don't have cell
As
coverage.
you're watching a video and filming a video at the same time.
Guys, we should have put cement in the post holes, not dirt. That'd be so bad.
Yeah, I've been offering that job, nobody's taking it.
I'll take it.
We'll take it. Yeah, we'll do it.
That's just below minimum wage too.
Huh?
It's just below minimum wage too.
I don't believe in that. Obviously, I'm paying zero.
As long as I get fed a lot of food.
And we can chase
The
bears.
river's just like, you can throw a rock in the river from where I'm building it. So you can catch
So like, I
catch your
can
dinner.
chase
Catch
bears
your
just
dinner.
by throwing a rock in the river and big fish.
I've done
All good.
that. I didn't keep it for dinner, but I did that.
Will we get fed any bear?
If we can chase the
The bear
bears,
might get fed.
if we can chase the bears,
Oh.
we'll do it.
Huh?
If we can chase the bears, we'll do it.
If I get bears,
What's your-
We get free animals.
No, that's where, no, it's like, see, none of my guns, none of my ammo, you gotta buy all, so.
oh yeah, how is it?
So it's not
Is
cost
ammo cheaper out there?
What?
Is ammo cheaper out there?
No, you just buy it from down here. Just put it up there. Because, yeah, it's more expensive.
It's not like somebody can.
I have a friend who's a federal, arms dealer, just kind of nice stuff.
So you grab a couple of yards.
And he repacks ammo, but he won't give me one.
Hey, we got a guy at our church that does it. So come to our church, we'll hook you up.
He probably won't give you anything.
Free?
Probably, I don't know. He has a whole.
I'm good for free. No, I'll be out there for several months doing the cabin. So. And then after that, hit the road again. I'm doing a lot of travel. I'll probably put 13,000, 14,000 miles on my trucks in 3 months. Yeah. About 2,000 of that has been last week. I was in Tennessee and I had to go to South Carolina. So I did that, which is 8 hours. And then the following day I had to rush back up to Tennessee. And then a little bit later, I went to South Carolina for a while. And then I had one Sunday in Tennessee. So 8 hours up, 10 hours back because of traffic jams. And then every day that week was 3 hours one way, then the other, then the other, then the other. And right after that, I came up here, which is probably 14, 15 hours. So, driving. Don't get pulled over by Georgia cops or no. But I heard that. Actually, I lied once.
Well, the cops that can last
Pretty cool. Oh, I don't have my keychain. Because I'm driving my brother's truck. I'm at my brother's car because he has my truck. And on my truck keychain is the keys to the Alaska State Trooper vehicles. That's pretty cool. I got keys to them because I'm the caretaker of them. And I work with the troopers when I'm out there. It's pretty fun.
So, like, you ever driven the cars?
Yeah. I drive them into Canada. Now that's fun. They hate it. Because these are fully functioning vehicles, and I'm driving them into Canada, and they don't
Any
like it.
guns or any metal plating on it?
There's ammo in there, but yeah, they keep me at the border for about an hour. I love it every second.
Dude, you should get like a
Because I can't stop
trooper
it.
sticker or whatever on the back, you know?
No, troopers might not like that because you gotta play politics when you're driving the car.
Wear a mega hat when you go.
That I can do.
That would be great.
Make liberal strike.
I had one of those.
Yeah.
I had a flag too.
Yeah. How's it do for you here in Michigan?
So, I live by faith, not by sight.
How's that stupid one?
Oh, yeah, actually, I stay with Israel sticker on my locker at the hospital. That was the Muslim lady that tore it down. She covered up the paper one time. She tore it off the second time. And yesterday, she tore it off the locker. She's an idiot because we got 5 more in the car. So.
You should put them on top of each other. Turn one off the next one.
I should put Matthew and Greg need to put one more on the locker.
Probably not that. Actually, in our town, the people we were homeschooled, and the people in our town were mad at us because the school had to close down because of one of those kids. There's 14 of them right there. So, we should have just said, come to our school. Right here. We actually had a schoolroom. It was like a school. Because you have to have, I think, 5 or 6 servants to keep it open.
Oh, and you know, more than class.
Yeah, I don't want to. We'll be in Colossians chapter 3 to start, and we'll move a few different places. But I really want to talk about how y'all are in a good church. You've been in preaching, I'm guessing, most of your life, most of you. I'm not going to really talk about how we all have a responsibility to serve God because I think you all know that's a responsibility every Christian has. I want to talk about more of this is not really like a sermon, I guess. This is more of just kind of logical thinking and things that's good to think about, obviously. We'll start in Colossians chapter 3 and verse 1. I love that it starts out with if. If ye then be risen with Christ. Because this obviously is talking to people who are saved. And I take it everybody in here is. I don't. So, this is talking to us then. If ye then be risen with Christ, seek those things which are above, where Christ sitteth on the right hand of God. So obviously this talks about our responsibility is to serve God, to seek the things which are above, to seek a reward, to seek to please God. All that goes in that verse. We could spend this whole time on that verse, but we're not going to. So the question is, are we saved? I believe everyone here is. So if we're saved, we have the responsibility to do these things. I'm skipping a bunch because this was prepared with the younger audience in mind. but then I changed it, so I'm not talking anymore. So we'll move on. If we're saved, we have this responsibility. We have a duty to seek out and to find out what God's will is for us. But I think when we talk about the will of God, often I've had a lot of people come up, like young people, especially younger. How do I know God's will for my life? Well, don't be looking for what God has for you for your entire life. Don't be looking for what does God want me to do in 10 years. The goal is to find, like, the goal is to, I think the will of God is, it's a daily thing. What does God want me to do today? And that's really the most important thing. That's the most important question, because if we follow every day what God wants us to do the next day, we'll be right where He wants us to be in 10 years, in 5 years, in 30 years. And so I think, well, John chapter 10, verse 27 sums it up. My sheep hear my voice. So we're God's sheep. If we are God's sheep, we will hear His voice. There's no doubt about it. Every Christian will hear God's voice. Now, we can begin to stray from that and cover it up and bring things in our life that cover up God's voice in our life. But if we throw off, and we'll talk about it a little later, laying aside the weight and the sin which necessarily beset us, when we move that stuff, we will hear God speak. That's a promise we have. So we need to be listening for God to speak, and we need to be always anticipating. That's really what I'm trying to get at. We need to be anticipating, being sensitive. And that's not just listening for God to speak out of the sky, obviously, which you all know this, but God will speak to us through people, through a pastor, through preachers, through counselors. God can speak to us in a lot of different ways through the Bible. But we need the main thing is to be sensitive to it and to be anticipating and wanting God to speak to us. So there's no question about that. The fact is, if you are saved, God does have a will for you. God does have a call. Not everybody's going to be a missionary. Not everyone's going to be a pastor. Not everyone's going to be an evangelist or whatever. But God has a call. We just have to figure out what it is. And that's done daily. So for most of us, that's pretty simple. Obviously, how old is oldest one here? So are you planning on going to college after this, or what's your kind of? Not sure. Cool. So you're getting to the point where you're thinking outside the box, which that's what everyone said was our last name. But you're getting to that point, but most of us is pretty simple. We know what God wants us to do. Fine. Honor our parents. Fine. Just study that. I mean, the simple things. But in doing that, God will show us the next step. And that's really what I had to learn. There's a pastor who was a missionary. Pastor missionary, not an evangelist, not something great. He was an evangelist, and he said this. He said, "The will of God is not where you go, and it's not what you do. The will of God is who you are." And we find who we're supposed to be according to the Bible. And I know I'm skipping over a lot we could talk about just for lack of time, but the will of God includes where you go. It includes all that. But the main thing is God has a will for who He wants us to be. And that's it's not an easy thing because of obviously where we live. It's getting harder to be it's getting harder to be open about being a Christian. If we're all being honest, we can say that. In our school, in our job, we get, people don't like it, and it can be harder. But let me just skip down here. I want to look at an example. Here's what I really want to get to. And you said he usually stops at what time do y'all need to? Okay, so we'll go through this quick. I want to look at this example. Please turn to Luke chapter 10. Because here we find a very special person in that God chose to take this lady's testimony, Mary's testimony, and use it in a great way. And obviously, it still is, because we're looking at it today. I want to look at the life of someone who is very dedicated. But I don't want to just look at that. I want to look at how she became that dedicated. Because we know what she did was a very sacrificial thing. The Bible talks about the ointment that she anointed Jesus' feet with as being precious. The Bible only uses the word precious a little bit. And so this was something very precious to her. But what brought her to the place where she was willing to just give it? Not a second thought. Just give it to Christ. Because that often was someone's life savings. That was very valuable in those days. And obviously, looking at the surrounding passages, Mary, Martha, and Lazarus, they were not very rich people. So this was obviously a very big gift. What brought her to the place where she was that dedicated? But also, because of her level of dedication, God used her in a great way. Let's read Luke chapter 10. Let's start in verse 38. It says, "Now it came to pass as they went that he entered into a certain village, and a certain woman named Martha received him into her house. And she had a sister called Mary, which also sat at Jesus' feet and heard his word. But Martha was cumbered about with much serving, and came to him and said, Lord, dost thou care that my sister hath left me to serve alone? Bid her therefore that she help me. And Jesus answered and said unto her, Martha, Martha, thou art careful and troubled about many things, but one thing is needful, and Mary hath chosen that good part, which shall not be taken away from her." So, I want to look at the 3 steps in serving God. This is generally the 3 steps everyone's going to take in serving God. We can't have just a desire to serve God and leave it at that. We all can agree about that. We can't just assume that serving God is just going to come naturally to us. We can't assume that living godly is just we're going to wake up one day and feel spiritual. It's a progressive thing. I mean, we're saved. When God saves us, He gives us the power to live right. He gives us the ability to hear Him. He gives us that ability. But it's something we have to learn. It's something we have to grow in as we get older. So the first step is always learning God's Word. And it's simple, but it's good to be reminded and think about it. Learn God's Word. The first time we find Mary in the Bible, what's she doing? She's sitting, listening to Jesus speak, hearing Him, learning His Word. That's the first thing we find her doing. And obviously, she held God's Word she held Jesus' words in high esteem. Because I'm assuming Martha, obviously, she wanted Mary to help her. Martha was under a big burden. But Mary saw listening to Jesus was more important than that. See, in those days, ladies didn't just sit and listen. They were the ones serving, and that's what the ladies generally did too. But even more so in those days, they were the ones, bringing the stuff and, being the host. But Mary saw importance in listening to Him speak. And I think that's really the first step in any type of growth as a Christian. We have to start here. And that's so simple, but also it's so easy to forget. It's so easy to get away from. Because we get busy, and it's just so easy to forget one day, and then the next. It's so easy to do. But if we are going to grow as a Christian, we have to start here in the Word of God. That's just basic, I know that, but it's still the first step. So that's the first time we see her. It should be of utmost importance in our life over work. Obviously, here she put it over her work. And then later, when she gave the alabaster box, she put this as more important than her money, and that's where it leads to. So the first thing is learn God's Word. Second thing here is lay your burdens down. The next time we find Mary is in John chapter 11. We can turn there. See, we only find Mary 3 times. And that's what I'm doing, looking at each time and looking at what she did. John chapter 11 and verse 32. It says, Then when Mary was come where Jesus was and saw him, she fell down at his feet, saying unto him, Lord, if thou hadst been here, my brother had not died. When Jesus therefore saw her weeping, and the Jews also weeping, which came with her, he groaned in the spirit and was troubled. So the second time we find Mary, what's she doing? She came, she cast herself down at Jesus' feet, and she laid her burdens down. As we seek to follow the Lord, things will come into our life that will, if we don't cast them down and give our burdens to Christ, they will hinder us. And these could be sins, these could be sorrows, these could be fears. Whatever these burdens are, they will hinder. In Hebrews chapter 12, it talks about our race. What are we supposed to do? We're supposed to lay aside every burden and the sin, because it will slow us down, if not stop us altogether. So this is a must in serving Christ, is laying our burdens down. Your burdens will hinder you from serving the Lord. The fact is, we all have burdens. That's true. Even though we like to think everything's good and on the up, there are times and there are things that come in. There are things, well, as young people coming toward being young adults, and some of you are, there's a lot that can burden us down, and that's often overlooked. And we can't just bury it, we got to cast it down. But here's where I want to get to. Well, before we get there, here's a fact. If you're trying to please Christ, and if you're trying to serve Him, you will see adversity. You will see opposition. You will have burdens. That is so. In knowing that, we have to know how to deal with them. And Mary showed us there. We have to cast them at His feet. We have to cast them away. We could go on and on, but we don't have a lot of time. The third thing, the third time we find Mary. Now we see her in a few more passages, but this is the third account. We see her 3 times, if you know what I'm saying. Here's the third time, John chapter 12. You can turn there. John chapter 12, and we'll read verses 1 through 3. It says, Then Jesus, six days before the Passover, came to Bethany, where Lazarus was, which had been dead, whom He had raised from the dead. There they made Him a supper. Martha served, but Lazarus was one of them that sat at the table with Him. Then took Mary a pound of ointment of spikenard, very costly, and anointed the feet of Jesus, and wiped His feet with her hair. And the house was filled with the odor of the ointment. So this is the third. Once we immerse ourselves in God's Word, and when we get a desire to learn it and a love for the Bible, then we can move on to learning how to cast our burdens away and leave everything with Christ, leave our worries with Him, and just focus on serving Him. If we do that, naturally we will grow in our relationship with Him, and that's where it should be. So the third thing is giving our all, because if we have a relationship with Christ, it shouldn't be any problem to us to want to give Him everything. I want to make a few observations from this passage. We've got 5 minutes. First, it was only because of her love for Christ that she was willing to do this. There's a high likelihood she was saving this for some special event, for whatever it was. And it was very important to her, very precious to her. But her love for Christ made her willing to do that. And here's the only way it could. Something more important had to come into her life. Something more precious. And we find in Mary's life, Jesus raised her brother from the dead. Obviously, that's going to make her value it more. But that's the first thing I want to notice. It was her love for Christ that made her willing to do this. If we don't have a love for Christ, we won't be willing to give everything we have to Him. We won't be willing to, as Romans chapter 12 says, be a living sacrifice. Because that's something God requires of us. Paul says, I beseech you, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice. See, when we get saved, we're no longer our own. And so, therefore, we have no right to decide what we do with our lives. Whatever we do with our lives has to be His will. That's from a legal standpoint, because we were bought. We're not our own. So that's the first thing I want to notice. The second thing, I want to notice that it was very costly, obviously. But everyone else will know of your dedication. When we serve God and we are dedicated to Him and we love Him, everyone else around us is going to know about it. And here's where I see that in John chapter 12 and verse 3, the last part. It says, "And the house was filled with the odor of the ointment." Everyone else knew what she had done. When we are happy to serve Him and we love Him and we are dedicated to Him, your friends will know. Your family will know. Your neighbors will know. We can't hide it. It's like an odor, and everyone else is going to know about it. If your neighbors don't know you're a Christian, there's something wrong. Because if you're dedicated, they will. If your friends don't know you're dedicated, there's something wrong because you're not. Your coworkers will know. Everyone will know. Now, I was listening to a pastor preach about this, and he talked about how this ointment, it would hold its odor for over a week. There was no getting it off of you. No, you couldn't wash it off. There was nothing taking it off. So it got me thinking, because this was right before Jesus died, and it was a very strong odor. Not just did everyone in that building know what she had done, but everyone that came in contact with Christ after this also knew. If you think about it, the soldiers that were crucifying Jesus would have smelt it. That would have been a testimony to them. The people that buried Christ. I mean, this odor lasted until after he was risen. So it's just something to think about. If we're dedicated and we let God use us, our influence in that way won't be hindered, won't be stopped, just with people we know God will use it in a bigger way. Which He did there, and also He's doing to this day, using her testimony. But in order to give everything we have to Christ, we must have first learned to trust Christ. We must have first learned to love Him, and that comes by spending time in fellowship. And I know it sounds simple, and it is, but it's so important. It's so simple because that's what it has to be. That's the first steps. And those steps don't ever stop. We don't ever get to a place in our Christian life where we've made it. We've got to that point. It's a continual growth. We must always stay in fellowship with Him. If we don't, we won't be willing to give everything we have to Him. We won't be willing to go where He tells us to go. And I'll be honest with you, when I first started thinking about Mongolia, I didn't want to go. Because it's a long way away from home, it's a long way away from family, it's cold, it's not an easy place. It's a cool place to visit. I mean, I love places like that to visit. But I struggled with it. But I knew in trying to figure out if this is what God wanted me to do, that caused me to get closer to Christ. And then automatically I became willing. If we're not close to Christ, we won't be good. That's what I'm trying to say. One last thing. God may not call you to Mongolia. High likelihood you're not going to be called to Mongolia. I mean, I'm praying that God will call more people, so who knows? He might. But God may not call you to pastor or be a minister of any kind. In the common use of the word ministry, because I believe every Christian has a ministry, and that's to honor and glorify Christ. But Lord may not call you to pastor or be an evangelist or whatever that is, or being on the mission field. But if He did, would you be willing? That's the main thing. Would you be willing? But one last thing about Mary, and then we'll be finished. Every time we see Mary in the Bible, every single time, the first time what does it say she did? Do you remember? The first time we see her? She sat where? At Jesus' feet. The second time, where was she when she cast the burdens down? It says she cast herself where? At His feet. And the third time, what's she doing? She's anointing Jesus' feet. The only way we can be dedicated like this is to spend time in His feet. You have to spend time in that fellowship. Spend time sitting there learning. Spend time in a quiet time, devotion, rejoicing for the Lord. And that's what brought her to be willing to do that. And God used her greatly. We ran a little bit over, sorry, but That's what more better. Hope you better. Is it the 45 minutes back? 42. I can make it 40. 35.
They said, they said the time card,
Really? The town car up here.
yeah. I would book that meeting and you put time, and then I hit like 9 points. I mean, I drove city.
They're upside down.
But you don't know how fast you're going, so.
No.
I've got